In Venezuela, the global forum of the relevance of the Bolivarian ideas of Commander Hugo Chavez continues on its second day, commemorating the 10 years since the commander's physical departure. 6 European countries call on the Israeli regime to halt the expansion of its settlements in the Palestinian territories. And in Tunisia, trade unions take to the streets of the capital in rejection of President Kais Saied's administration. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from TeleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Ecuador, a parliamentary debate that could lead to the impeachment of President Guillermo Lasso for alleged corruption charges is underway. On Saturday, the ad hoc Specialized Commission for Truth, Justice and Against Corruption, which investigated the case called the Great Godfather, is presenting before the Ecuadorian Parliament their report against Lasso in order to examine the accusations of assigning positions and contracts in state companies in exchange for bribes. On Wednesday, March 1st, the Commission presented a document in which it says that the President is responsible for crimes against public administration and state security. Guillermo Lasso has faced accusations regarding bank accounts related on the so-called Pandora Papers case, and more recently for his alleged participation in acts of corruption and alleged links with drug trafficking and with the Albanian mafia. Also in Ecuador, President Guillermo Lasso decreed a state of exception in the province of Esmeraldas for the third time this year due to a rampant crime rate. The decree substantiates the decision by alleging to a serious internal commotion. The measure will effectively restrict the right to free transit, assembly, the inviolability of home and correspondence between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. for 60 days. Previously, the government had already implemented similar measures on 2 occasions. Even so, in the first 8 weeks of 2023, there have been 70 reported homicides in the province of Esmeraldas, besides several attacks to police stations. The president's critics say that these figures are proof of the ineffectiveness of such a measure. The Global Forum for the Relevance of the Bolivarian Ideas of Commander Hugo Chavez continues on its second day. Several activities are scheduled to commemorate 10 years of the commander's physical departure. During this second day of the meeting at the Jose Felix Rivas Hall of the Teresa Carreño Theater, participants plan to present the bilingual version of the book Cuentos del Arañero. Those attending the event will also address decolonization and socialism of the 21st century. Furthermore, there will be a concert of singer-songwriters in the Rios Reina Hall, and the day will end with a vigil in the 4F Square and the Mountain Barracks in honor of the 10 years of Chavez's physical departure. These activities gather different personalities, intellectuals, social movement activists, and politicians that have accompanied the Bolivarian revolution led by Chavez's strategic thinking. In this context, President Nicolás Maduro highlighted on his Twitter account, "What a joy to see the movements of the peoples of our Americas in Bolivar's homeland. Welcome. It is an extraordinary way to recognize their legacy and the Bolivarian thinking of Commander Chavez. Long live the union and the struggle of the peoples." More than 260 trucks stranded in Peru for over 50 days have returned to Bolivia thanks to an arrangement made by the government with the authorities of the neighboring country. According to information from the Bolivian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, thanks to the government's efforts, trucks that had been stranded in Peruvian highways due to road blockades brought on by social unrest in southern Peru have returned to the country. This was possible thanks to a truce between protesters and the Bolivian government. Since social unrest began in Peru, the government of Bolivia has had to intervene to safeguard the rerun of over 1,000 trucks. Bolivia makes use of Peruvian and Chilean ports to export and import products because it does not have a sovereign access to the Pacific Ocean. On Saturday, the National Resistance Coalition in Guatemala reaffirmed the current electoral process is an anti-democratic one, and therefore the movement, along with the citizenship, must remain united to overthrow the current government.
National Resistance Coalition, given the current crisis in the country in all aspects, reiterates that we are in a dictatorship and also that the current electoral process ahead of the general elections next June is one more step towards the implementation of an anti-democratic and tyrannical regime that requires our active resistance and that of all citizens to overthrow it.
In Uruguay, the Ministry of Livestock, Agriculture and Fisheries confirmed a second outbreak of avian influenza, this time in a family establishment in the city of Tacuarembó. The ministry's livestock directorate reported the death of some 70 hens and 3 backyard birds on a farm in the town of San Gregorio de Polanco, located in the center-north of the country, and reported the presence of avian influenza H5 as the cause of death. Given the situation, the ministry applied the protocols corresponding to the case, including the isolation of the area and surveillance within an area of 5 kilometers. Meanwhile, at 350 kilometers east of San Gregorio de Polanco, in Garzón Lagoon, where the first focus was located, it was possible to establish a control without reporting new deaths after the decease of more than 100 wild birds, mostly black-necked swans. The Chilean government has issued a 30-day extension to the state of catastrophe declared for the central southern regions affected by wildfires, which have killed 26 people so far. The measure affects the provinces of Ñuble, Biobío, and La Araucanía, which are the most devastated by the flames that started a month ago and have destroyed more than 2,420 houses and almost 441,000 hectares of forest. Some 800 international rescue workers from Mexico, Spain, Venezuela, among other countries, have arrived in Chile to support mitigating efforts. According to the National Disaster Prevention and Response Service, there are still 21 active fires, while 37 have already been extinguished. In Malaysia, officials said Saturday that at least 4 people died and nearly 41,000 were evacuated following floodwaters caused by unusual torrential rains lasting days swept through several states. The rains have continued unabated, hampering relief efforts. Malaysian National Society President Vincent Chow stated that these were the worst floods to hit Johor since 1969. Malaysia is facing unprecedented continuous torrential rain from the annual monsoon season that began in November. The Southeast Asian nation often experiences stormy weather around the year's end, with seasonal flooding regularly causing mass evacuations and deaths. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. 6 European countries asked the Israeli regime to halt the expansion of its settlements in Palestinian territories. In a joint statement, the authorities of Germany, France, Great Britain, Italy, Poland, and Spain called on Israel to reverse the recent decision to move forward with the construction of more than 7,000 settlement units in the occupied Palestinian territories and legalized settlement outposts. These 6 countries recall that all Israeli settlements are illegal under international law. The joint statement came a day after the European Union's envoy to the Palestinians called for accountability and for the perpetrators to be brought to justice after illegal settlers went on a rampage centered on a village near the occupied Palestinian territory of the city of Nablus. German public transport workers began a one-day strike on Friday to increase pressure on the government in an ongoing wage dispute. Authorities in the country warned passengers to prepare for significantly disrupted travel in major cities, including Cologne, Frankfurt, Stuttgart, and Munich. According to protest organizers, bus, streetcar, and subway drivers in 6 federal states joined the strike, which also aims to draw attention to climate change and the need to strengthen public transportation. On Friday, a coalition of French labor unions, opposition political parties, and activist groups called for nationwide general strikes and protests on March 7th. The decision is part of a campaign denouncing the government's proposed pension reforms that will raise the retirement age. It will be the sixth nationwide multi-sector strike since the current campaign started on January 19th. On Friday, leaders of the major labor unions in the European country took part in an inter-union meeting.
We want the generalization of strikes, not the general strike, because the generalization of strikes, it seems quite clear to me, is that everyone should act everywhere. It is not a leaflet, even with the most beautiful writing calling for a general strike, that will make people go on a strike.
The Church of Portugal asked for forgiveness for the sexual abuses committed within the Catholic Church against minors during half a century. In a statement issued by the Extraordinary Plenary Assembly of the Portuguese Bishops' Conference, it was reported that the request for forgiveness will have a public expression in April, and a monument will be erected to honor the victims during the next World Youth Day in early August in Lisbon. The bishops promised to take concrete measures after an independent report commissioned in 2021 revealed that members of the country's clergy sexually abused at least 4,815 minors since 1950. The document, published on February 13th and based on more than 500 testimonies, pointed out that the aggressions were covered up by the ecclesiastical hierarchy in a systematic way. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov participated on Friday in High-Zina Dialogue 2023, a multilateral conference on geopolitics and geoeconomics held annually in New Delhi, India, and hosted by the independent think tank, the Observer Research Foundation, in collaboration with the Ministry of External Affairs of India.
Participated yesterday in the G20 ministerial, and our Western friends were shouting in the microphones, Russia must, Russia must, Russia must, and all the developing delegates, they were also saying, you know, we want to stop the war when Russia is ready to negotiate. If you are really interested in politics and in the root causes of this particular situation, then you would know that Biden, Blinken, Stoltenberg, Borrell, repeatedly stated that Russia must be defeated on the battlefield.
On Friday, a large fire broke out at a fuel storage depot in Indonesia's capital, killing at least 16 people, injuring dozens, and forcing the evacuation of thousands of nearby residents as the flames spread to their neighborhood. According to fire officials, at least 260 firefighters and 52 fire engines struggled to contain the blaze in the nearby neighborhood until it was finally put out several hours after it had started. The fuel storage station, operated by state-run oil and gas company Pertamina, is near a densely populated area in North Jakarta and supplies 25% of Indonesia's fuel needs.
It started with a very strong smell. It was so strong that we could hardly breathe. Then we were leaving this area when we suddenly heard a very loud explosion. We have asked the people who reside around the burning site to help clear the area, to give clearer access to fire trucks and ambulances because the roads are small.
TeleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat, dial 461, and enjoy our Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back from the South. Tunisia's trade union organization UGTT held the largest protest so far against the terror campaign led by President Kais Saied. Demonstrators denounced the different crises facing the nation, from the arrest of political opponents to the persecution of sub-Saharan migrants. The Secretary General of the UGTT, Noureddin Taboubi, claimed the need for a discourse that unites and does not divide, and even less one that demonizes union leaders. Citizens marched towards the Avenue Bourguiba, notoriously guarded by security forces, with slogans of freedom against the one-man government. Today, anyone can be summoned by the courts. The problem is the way in which terror is practiced among children and the elderly, and nighttime raids on homes for arrest. These practices must stop. We have created a revolution to put an end to these practices based on violence and misunderstanding. The head of the UGTT sent a message of solidarity for all sub-Saharan asylum seekers. We also say to our children and our sub-Saharan migrant brothers, Tunisia is the country of tolerance and union, not to racial discrimination. We stand for universal human rights. In Azerbaijan, members of the non-aligned movement expressed the need for reform of the UN Security Council and the expansion of its membership in order to make it more representative. On Friday, Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev called on the NAM to have a greater role on the international stage as the new world order continues to reshape. Vietnam's National Assembly confirmed Vo Van Thuong as the country's new president in a reshuffle of the country's top leadership amid a sweeping anti-corruption campaign. In an extraordinary session on Thursday, legislators confirmed Thuong, 52 years old, as president after the ruling Communist Party nominated him on Wednesday as the sole candidate. Thuong's appointment comes during a period of political upheaval in Vietnam, where the all-powerful Communist Party's corruption purge is underway and factional fighting has seen several ministers fired.
I would like to thank the Central Committee of Vietnam's Communist Party, General Secretary Nguyen Phu Trong, and leaders of the party and the state for trusting and recommending me for this position. This is a great honor and a very heavy task for me. I will do anything that is of benefit to the people and avoid anything that is harmful to the people. I will be determined in the fight against corruption and negative phenomena.
We have come to the end of this news program. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.